Hi, everyone. I'm Seth Mullendor with the nonprofit Clean Energy Group, and I'm going to be presenting on how to size a solar and storage system. The objectives of this presentation are to lay out thinking through project goals and potential constraints, some information that's helpful to gather to inform the process, then a bit on solar system sizing, a bit more on energy storage system sizing, and finally, just a few additional factors to consider. So when you're first approaching a solar and energy storage project, the best first step is to figure out your project goals and then also any potential constraints that could impact the sizing of your system. When we're talking about energy resilience systems, one of the most important things is what type of outage event are you designing for? Are you looking to just ride through periodic frequent outages that may last only a couple of hours? Or are you looking to design a system that's able to support through longer duration outages, potentially over a day or more? And also, what type of activities are you trying to support during an outage event? So what do you need to have up and running so that you can provide the services or keep the activities going that you need to have supported during an outage? Another thing that, of course, is important in any project is cost. So this can be both a goal and a constraint. So is it a goal that the system needs to be able to provide a positive economic return, or is that a constraint on your system? Does it need to be able to pay for itself in order for this to move forward? And what will be considered in that cost calculation, the cost benefits? Will you consider economic savings only, things like solar offsetting an energy bill and energy storage, potentially reducing demand charges or providing revenue through services? Or will you also factor in some more non-monetizable benefits as well, things that are harder to quantify and put a price on, things like what are the avoided costs of having power instead of having an outage? What are the value of the services provided? This can be both to people, if you're, say, affordable housing, comfort to residents, or it can be the potential loss of services or loss of revenue for a business. There are also things like environmental benefits that you can quantify as well. And then that gets into sustainability. There are certain sustainability goals that you're trying to achieve with this system, such as a percentage reduction in the carbon emissions for your facility. Or a lot of folks are trying to design a system for net zero electricity consumption so that the solar system will completely offset all of the energy use over a year. And that gets us into some helpful information to have on hand. Really, the most important thing is to have a good sense of your electricity usage today. So you want to have your monthly electric bills. Ideally, you'll have it throughout the whole year so that you know how your energy use varies throughout the year and as seasons change. This will give you an idea of your energy consumption, both monthly and over the year. You can look at your rates and how your utility charges you to look to see, do you have demand charges, demand-related charges? And are those a big portion of your bill? They can be for some customers who have high demand charges. Also, do you have rates that vary over time? So does it cost less for your electricity during a certain part of the day and more at other times of the day? Other things that are helpful to have are building plans to know where you might have locations for solar, what might be in the way, as well as electrical drawings. Does your facility have multiple electric meters? Where are all the things that you want to have powered located on your electricity system? And finally, for resilience in particular, you want to have an idea of your critical load list. So what do you want to have powered? What do you need to have powered in an emergency, in a power outage situation? And for each of those loads or those devices that you want to have powered, an idea of the power ratings for each device. That might be listed on a device, or you can just do a little online research to find either your specific device to have powered or similar devices to get a better understanding of what the power needs for that device are. So now on to solar system sizing. I'm not going to talk too much about this because we did another presentation on assessing the solar potential of a building using a couple of tools. So if you haven't watched that, that will give you more detail about how to do what is your actual potential for solar. But the important part of that is just where is your solar going to be located? A lot of systems are rooftop systems. So how much room do you have on your roof? What else is up there? And what's your potential there? And that's in the assessment. Additional areas that are under consideration: do you have a carport area, or are going to build a carport or a canopy where you can have solar hosted? Or do you have enough room outside to have a ground mount system that can contribute to your solar production? This will all give you an idea then of what you're working with for solar. And then you can use your utility bills, your information about your annual electricity consumption, to get an idea of how much of the electricity that you currently use or are expecting to use in the future can be offset by solar. If you're trying to design a system for net zero energy, you want to offset all of that electricity consumption, but maybe you can only get a portion of that. So that will give you a sense of the sizing. Generally, you're not going to be looking at sizing the system to greatly produce more electricity than what you consume, unless you're designing some sort of community solar system that will be shared with other people. Net energy metering is also an important factor to consider for solar sizing. Most solar systems participate in a net metering program where it's available. You may have a different value of solar that gets exported to the grid if you're not using it directly on site. That's an important consideration in the sizing. Also, net metering rules and regulations can limit the size of a system. It may be that you're not allowed to participate in a net metering program if you have more solar. So you have to size your system to only produce at a maximum the annual electricity consumption, or some fraction of that, maybe 110% of your last year's consumption or expected consumption. And now we'll move on to energy storage system sizing, which gets a little bit more complicated. So we're going to spend a little bit more time on that. An important initial consideration with battery storage sizing is that there are two different numbers for the size of a battery system. One is the power rating, and the other is the energy capacity. So the power rating, or rated power, is really the maximum rate that a battery can either charge or discharge energy. So if you think about it in terms of water, a bathtub, the faucet, the rate of water coming into fill up a bathtub, that's really your power rating. For electricity, for batteries, this is measured in kilowatts or megawatts for bigger projects. And the power rating really determines what devices can be powered in an outage. So how much power are you working with? When you add up the power needs of all the things that you want to power, can't be above that maximum power rating for the battery. Energy capacity, on the other hand, is talking about the total amount of energy that a battery can store or discharge over time. So with the bathtub, you're looking about how much water is in your bathtub that you have to work with. So for a battery, this is measured in kilowatt hours or megawatt hours for bigger systems. And the energy capacity really determines how long the devices that you're powering can be used during a power outage. So how long can they be operated? Another important consideration with energy storage system selection and sizing is what type of battery are you going to be using? For most systems today, we're talking about lithium-ion batteries. There are different variations in lithium-ion, but some type of lithium-ion battery. Historically, a lot of solar and energy storage systems for backup power have incorporated lead-acid batteries. That's still an option for systems today, and still one that gets used a lot of times. Lead-acid batteries are been around for a very long time, and they are a lot less expensive up front than lithium-ion batteries. But if you're expecting to do more than just have backup power, lead-acid batteries don't cycle charge and discharge as well as lithium-ion does. They tend to not last as long. So for batteries that are going to be used a lot and that you want to use for a long time, lithium-ion may be the better choice, but for some limited applications, it may be lead-acid. There are also other types of batteries that are becoming more and more available, and those could be options for your system as well. But in today's market and for the foreseeable next few years, probably lithium-ion is going to be the go-to, or lead-acid, like I said, for some projects. Another consideration is siting of the battery system. So where's it going to go? Is it going to go indoors? Is it going to go outdoors in a garage or a parking lot? Part of the consideration of that is how big a storage system are you dealing with? This graphic here is very much oversimplified, but it gives you an idea of the kinds of sizing of systems. So for a smaller battery storage system, a residential or a small commercial, really you're talking about the footprint of, say, a dormitory refrigerator or a very thin full-size refrigerator. So that you're talking about maybe 20 kilowatt sizing or under. When you get into around 100 kilowatts and multiple 100 kilowatts range, we're looking more at a commercial size refrigerator, the blue box there. So we're getting a bit bigger. For larger systems, when we're talking about more of the large commercial, some call utility scale size batteries, when we're getting into the megawatt hour size batteries, then you're typically talking about a storage container size. So the orange box around there, it's like a 20-foot storage container. May also be a 40-foot storage container for very large systems. But finally, let's talk about actually sizing the system. We're just going to talk about sizing the system for backup power, for energy resilience here. So this is where you get back to your critical loads and your list of loads and their power ratings. This is a representative selection of loads that you might want to have powered during an outage. And you'll see the power rating below those, the wattage that they require. You see for a couple of those, refrigerator and water pump, that there's both a starting power rating and a running power rating. This is because for some types of devices, they'll have kind of a kick on where a pump might kick on, and that requires a higher amount of power than it is if it's just running, which it is doing most of the time. So sometimes you'll hear your refrigerator starts to make noise. That's a pump kicking in the refrigerator, and that draws more power than just the usual running state of the refrigerator. So for these loads, for sizing the system, you would need to consider the maximum power rating for all of these added together. So you can see that this is 5.2 kilowatts or 5,200 watts. That is the total for these devices. So you would need a battery system that has at least around a 5 kilowatt rating for the power rating to make sure that when all of these kick on at the same time, you have enough power in your battery to make sure that they can all be running. For the energy capacity side, you're going to look at the average power for all of these. So that's 1.87 kilowatts that you're looking at this. And now you need to start thinking about, well, what type of duration outage are you going to be sizing for? For this example, we just used a 6-hour power outage as an example. So you take that average power rating, the 1.87 times the 6 hours, and you get 11.22 kilowatt hours. So it's about an 11 kilowatt hour energy capacity battery system. So for reference, again, here you're looking at a 5 kilowatt power rating, 11 kilowatt hour of the capacity for the energy capacity for the battery system. For a frame of reference, a Tesla Powerwall 2, which is a common residential or small commercial battery system, it has a power rating of 5 kilowatts with a maximum power rating of 7 kilowatts. So it can, for short periods, have a higher power than that, and an energy capacity of 13.5 kilowatt hours. So for this application, that battery or a battery like that could be a good fit for what you're trying to do. So just a few additional factors to consider when you're sizing a solar and storage system. So we talked about backup power, but what else do you want your system to be able to do? Do you want to manage your demand charges to lower your electricity costs? Do you want to try to increase your solar self-consumption? Maybe you don't get as much money for solar exported to the grid, and you want to increase how much you consume on site. Maybe providing some grid services, a demand response program for utility or other services where your system can provide revenue. Those will have additional considerations as far as the sizing of the battery goes. When you're talking about your outages, when do those typically occur? If you're in the northern area where outages tend to happen in the winter, are you going to have solar available, or is it going to be covered with snow? Also, is your outage going to occur most likely in the middle of the night or when conditions are cloudy? You may not always have your solar available, so that's important to consider in designing your system. Also, there may be times where solar and storage alone just won't provide the level of resilience that you need. Maybe you're really planning for a very long outage, where weeks or even months you might have a power out. Or you have very high power loads that it just becomes uneconomical for energy storage to be able to meet those power ratings alone. In that case, you might want to think about a hybrid system, where solar, energy storage, and some other type of on-site generation, whether it's a traditional diesel generator or natural gas generator. Could be something like a fuel cell or a combined heat and power system, which larger facilities sometimes have. Those can help increase your resilience and your ability to withstand a longer outage. So that's all we're going to cover today. Thank you for participating in this presentation. For all of this, there's more information about all of these topics in Clean Energy Group's guide, Understanding Solar and Storage, so you can reference that to dig in deeper on any of these.